I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: what could Hannah Gadsby learn from Russell Brand? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because over the weekend, broken down into a couple of pieces and on the treadmill, I managed to actually watch Russell Brand's new Netflix comedy special, Rebirth. Now, what's interesting about this is that a couple of months back, Hannah Gadsby, the Australian comedian, shot to global fame with her Netflix special called Nanette, where basically this comedy special ended up ending on a very, very somber note. Not just a somber note, but a lecture. Basically, an ideological and political lecture was administered to the world through the vehicle of what was supposed to be, or we all thought initially was a sort of a comedy special. Now, if you're part of the ideological choir and you loved what Hannah Gadsby is preaching in her comedy special, you're going to love what she's got to say. And you're going to go, yeah, this is great. She's saying exactly what I want to hear. But if you're not part of the choir, then you're going to look at this and you're going to say to yourself, why is she preaching this? Why is she preaching at me? What happened to the comedy? Why do I not feel part of this journey? I now feel like I am being lectured to by a school ma'am. Why is this happening? That's how you're going to perceive this unless you're actually already committed to the ideology. But here's the interesting thing. Russell Brand actually does something similar. He has this comedy special, but what he does is he also has some pretty serious political messages that are very much part of this comedy special as well. But unlike Hannah Gadsby, he actually succeeds in doing it really well. Now, this is not an endorsement of Russell Brand, and I'm not trying to suggest he's some deep philosopher who's got his handle on the world and he's got all the wisdom that we need. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't flaws in his character. I'm not suggesting that you should go out and this is a big endorsement of Rebirth. But what it is this is an interesting and fascinating insight into excellence in communication. And this is something that interests me for a couple of reasons. Number one, in my job, I do a lot of public speaking in New Zealand and Australia. On average this year, I probably would have spoken, if you averaged out all of the public presentations that I've given, probably 2 to 3 different public presentations across both countries every week on average. So I'm interested in the art of excellence in communication. The other reason I'm interested in this is because a big part of what I do is training individuals and organizations in excellence in the whole area of media communication and public communications in general. So this whole area, it fascinates me. I have an interest in this. And so for me, watching Russell Brand at work was absolutely engaging because this is a textbook object lesson and how to communicate well. And he really does this well. So you've really only got 2 options here. Either Russell Brand has somehow, purely by sheer dumb luck, stumbled upon lightning in a bottle and he has no idea what he's doing. He's just doing something that is a perfect magic formula for excellence in communication. Or underneath the sort of the whole boyish, impish, shallow type character persona that we often perceive, there's actually a very astute communicator who's figured out how to communicate well and is doing that aspect of Russell Brand very, very well. I think he actually knows what he's doing because I watched this thing from beginning to end and there is a very effective rhythm to the way in which he's communicating. So like I said, there are some serious political messages in here that have very real potential to actually alienate an audience or to have people fed up for a couple of reasons. One, you might not agree with what he's saying. Number two, you might have thought to yourself, well, I've come to a comedy special. Where's the comedy I'm being lectured at? Which is what happened with Hannah Gadsby. But he avoids that problem altogether, and it's fascinating to watch him at work. Why? Why? And this is the thing afterwards I thought to myself and sat down and thought, why did he succeed where Hannah Gadsby failed? Why is it that I get to the end of the Russell Brand thing, and even though I don't agree with some of his conclusions, I find myself saying, yeah, he's right about some of these things here. I don't agree with his conclusions. I don't necessarily agree with his politics. I think there's still issues that aren't necessarily that great about Russell Brand, but at the end of it, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, this was horrible, this was awful, I was preached at. Someone shut this off right now. Why did I have that experience with Hannah Gadsby, but I didn't have that experience with Russell Brand? And so the why here really matters. First of all, like I said, the art of communication, and you see it in the way that he actually, it's a very rhythmic kind of thing. So what happens is you get the comedy, and then all of a sudden you're on a comedic peak, and then he drops into a serious point. He gets into some political messaging, but he doesn't keep going down the rabbit hole. Hannah Gadsby did. She just followed this thing all the way to a very stern, very vocal, and very, very loud denunciation. This thing ended on that's what it was. He doesn't do that. What he does is he gets to a point, and just when you could cross into that line of things going too far, he pulls out again, and you get a joke. He realizes this is someone who has a grasp of, okay, now's the time to use a little bit of humor. This is a comedy special after all. And now's the time to say something serious, and now's the humor. And he does this well. Secondly, it seems to me that Russell Brand strikes me, for any of the other faults he might have, and whether or not you agree or disagree with his politics, he's struck me now for a while as being someone who's a genuine truth seeker. And you get that sense as well in this comedy special, that he's not there to try and lecture you, that clearly he has his firm beliefs, but there's also this sort of impish, good-natured character to him as well, and he is genuinely searching for answers. He's not standing up here like a preacher who's going to tell you all your sins. He recognizes his own fallibility and his own broken nature, and he's also sort of inviting us on that journey of questioning with him. Now, that is a very powerful communication technique. It is far better to actually invite people and to invite them into questioning what they believe than it is to actually just out and out stand there in front of them and denounce them or what they believe in just bold, unflinching terms. Basically, human nature takes over at that point, and when you start boldly denouncing things at people, what happens is they tend to react by actually pushing back. But if you raise questions and there's a sincerity to it as well, people are more open to the idea of actually going along on that journey with you. You also get the sense with Russell Brand that even though I know him and I would disagree, I'm not into all the new agey stuff that he's into. I disagree with some of the conclusions and the prescriptions he offers. I get it though. I really do accept some of the things he raises in this comedy special. I agree with. He's right. He's spot on. I just don't think he's figured out necessarily what the right answers are to those problems. But here's what I believe. I have myself believing that I could actually sit in a pub with Russell Brand and we could have, even strongly disagreeing, that we could actually have a very amicable disagreement and discussion. And there's that sort of impish, good-natured genuineness to what's going on here. It's not an authoritarian lecture where you will be shut down and you will shut up because the fact that you disagree is an act of violence and it must be silenced. You don't get that with Russell Brand. You actually get the sense that you could, and very, very few comedians, let alone others who are trying to speak, I guess, in this arena, actually have that. And it's fascinating to watch. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because I got to the end of it and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing to actually get in touch with Russell Brand and see if he would come on my show? I actually thought to myself, yeah, maybe I could do that. And then I was like, what am I thinking? This guy has this massive celebrity status. And I was thinking, this is impossible. But because of the way in which the communication happens, you actually sort of find yourself entertaining that as a possibility. Now that, again, is a powerful and very effective communications tool. It actually brings people with you on the journey, and he does that. And he is very self-deprecating in his humor. He doesn't put himself up there as the guy on the pinnacle. There are plenty of moments in this. There's some great moments where he actually uses actual media interview footage. And I'm someone who trains people in this arena, and he's right. Some of the mistakes he made, and he highlights them. He's self-deprecating. He's quite open about making himself the butt of the joke. He's not the guy who's here, the great moral theologian who has figured out the truth and will now tell you about how sinful you are. He's a fallible guy just like you, and he's stuffed up. And guess what? What you see in that is you recognize a part of yourself in it. And you recognize, that if I was in that situation, I'd probably stuff up like that too. He's not trying to cover it over. And that self-deprecating humor really helps to take us on that journey. And the other thing that I think really works here is this aspect of fatherhood, which is something that has come into his life as of late. He is now a father. And he talks about this during the show. And it's interesting. I'm a father myself as well, and I recognise, because here he is talking about his daughter. My eldest child is a girl, and I remember those first moments, weeks and months after she was born and she came into my life, my first child. It was powerfully transformative. And so I recognise straight away when someone is telling the truth about those kind of matters, because you know the experience. It's very deep, it's very profound, and when someone else, another bloke who's talking about fatherhood, is telling the truth about fatherhood, you recognise it straight away. You understand what he's talking about. Like I said, I don't agree with the prescription. He's saying, well, here's how we fix it. I don't necessarily agree with all that. What he seems to be suggesting is that we just unhitch ourselves from the big story and somehow the next generation just reinvent a new one. I don't think it actually works like that. I think the reason that the big story, the original stuff, actually gives us the ability to flourish and find the fullness of the human experience is because it's true. And you don't unhitch yourself from the truth and then say, we'll just reinvent some other new thing and call it the truth. I don't believe that's how it happens. However, he's absolutely spot on when he talks about his baby girl and the way in which it just transformed him and brought him to his knees, and this realization of what am I doing here? Am I going to mess this up? How am I going to contribute to her world? That stuff is profound, and it's true. It shapes a lot of what's going on here. In many ways, it's almost a plea. Hey, we got to figure this out. And it's much more engaging from a communications perspective. There's a fascinating incident that actually happens towards the end of the special where he makes a joke about Donald Trump. And for me, this is a really subversive moment, because there's two layers to this joke. There's the main punchline, if you like, of the joke, the main thrust of what he actually delivers. And then there's sort of a secondary laugh. And the secondary laugh, he calls Donald Trump a name. But here's the thing. If you're watching this and you're already one of those people who's like, I hate Trump and I'm really obsessed with hating Trump, you're going to hear him call Trump a name and you're going to go, yeah, he called Donald Trump a name. This is one of the best comedy specials ever, because that's what you're looking for. Those comedians who turn up and just rattle off a list of political virtue signaling points. It's not about anything deeper for them, any questioning, any searching for meaning, which is what you sense from Russell Brand. Instead, it's just like, how do I signal to all the right people that I've got all the right political status and beliefs? And they just, how about that Trump, eh? How about that Brexit, eh? And they just rattle off this list of silly and simplistic jokes. No, so that's not what's going on here. But if you're one of those people and you hear him say this, you go, oh, he called Trump a name. This is one of the best comedy specials ever. This is cutting edge stuff. But what you miss is this, and this is the subversive and I think really important point, is the actual punchline to what he's saying, is that basically what he's saying is, well, yeah, he may be one of those, but he has that integrity, he's taken the mask off, he's not hiding it. And what he's saying here effectively is to people who are in that camp, yeah, you can laugh at Donald Trump because I called him a name, but hold on a minute, your leaders are actually probably doing something that's even worse in the sense that they're lying to you. They put on the mask of integrity. They put on the mask of virtue. They put on this mask, this veneer that makes them seem very respectable. But then what's going on behind closed doors and what they're really doing, your leaders are just as bad as this guy, except he's just being honest about it. He doesn't put on the mask of civility in public, where your guys do. And it's a very subversive moment. And it's also, I think, an important moment because there's a depth to that. Again, this is not an endorsement of Trump for any particular reason, but the point is that he's highlighting the hypocrisy of this whole thing. There's a brokenness at the heart of the system, and we're trying to pin it onto one person or a couple of people here or different groups, but the system is broken. And that's what makes this comedy special so fascinating, because he actually causes people, I think, to start questioning some of the stuff. And he succeeds in doing it. He actually succeeds in doing something that Hannah Gadsby couldn't do. Because whether you like it or not, unless you're already in the choir, like if you go to Hannah Gadsby and you're already in that ideological choir, you're going to love it. You're going to think this is the best thing since sliced bread. But so what? Surely the whole point of good communication, and it seems to me that this is what Hannah Gadsby and Russell Brand are trying to do here, is they are trying to get other people to question what they believe and why they believe it. And surely the whole art of that is actually about speaking to the people who are not already in your ideological group. It's about connecting with people who are outside of it and perhaps encouraging them to think more deeply about their beliefs and actions. And Russell Brand succeeds in doing that because he actually talks to a group beyond his own ideological sphere. Hannah Gadsby doesn't do that, and that's why she fails and he succeeds. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comments section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on Subscribestar or Patreon. There is a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.